For more than a century, radicals have clung to the promise of social revolution, the great day when history finally turns, when the masses awaken, seize the means of life, and abolish domination once and for all. This idea has been endlessly rehearsed by Marxists waiting for objective conditions, by anarchists hoping for spontaneous harmony, by activists convinced that the right movement, platform, or consciousness raising campaign will finally tip the scales. This fixation is not just naive, it's paralyzing. The myth of social revolution rests on a dangerous assumption that domination can be undone through a single collective historical event, that capitalism and authority will collapse under their own contradictions or be dismantled by a unified so-called people acting in concert. But capitalism does not merely exist as an economic system. It lives in habits, relationships, identities, fears, and desires. Authority is not confined to the state or the boss. It reproduces itself in families, social norms, moral codes, activist organizations, and revolutionary movements themselves. Waiting for a total transformation of society means waiting forever, or worse, handing our lives over to managers of struggle who promise liberation later. History has shown this pattern repeatedly. Revolutions that aim to transform society as a whole inevitably give birth to new authorities tasked with coordinating, defending, and administering the revolution. The state is abolished in name only to return in function. The language changes, domination remains. Social revolution becomes an ideology of postponement. Live obediently now, organize correctly, build the movement, trust the process. Freedom will come later. To reject social revolution is not to embrace passivity, though. On the contrary, it is to insist that revolt is immediate, personal, and ongoing. Revolt is not a blueprint for a future society. It's a rupture in the present. It begins wherever people refuse the roles assigned to them: worker, citizen, activist, subject, whatever the role may be. It emerges in moments where obedience cracks, where individuals act for themselves rather than for an abstract future or collective identity. Capitalism demands our compliance every day, selling our time, competing against one another, accepting that life must be earned, existing and not living. Authority demands our recognition, laws, morals, hierarchies presented as natural and inevitable. Revolt matters because it interrupts this daily reproduction of domination. Even when revolt does not win, as it were, it alters the terrain. It exposes the fragility of power, which depends on routine, resignation, and belief. It creates spaces, however temporary, where different ways of relating become possible. Mutual aid without obligation, solidarity without hierarchy, desire without permission. From this viewpoint, revolt is not justified by its eventual success. It is justified because submission guarantees defeat, while revolt at least affirms life against what it's been reduced to. We should be skeptical, however, of mass politics, not out of elitism, but because mass movements tend to smooth out conflict in the name of unity. They demand discipline, messaging, strategy, and compromise. They ask individuals to subordinate their desires to the cause. But domination thrives on abstraction. The people, the working class, society, these abstractions erase individual experience and autonomy. Revolt, by contrast, starts from lived experience, from anger, refusal, joy, and the desire to live now, not after the revolution. This doesn't necessarily mean isolation, though. Revolts spread through affinity, contagion, and recognition. People join in not because they are told to, but because they express themselves in the act of refusal. What emerges are not institutions, but relationships forged in rebellion. We should not expect a liberated society waiting on the other side of history. There is no end of power, no final emancipation, no stable utopia. Domination mutates, resistance must do the same. This is not pessimism, it's a refusal of false hope. Freedom is not a destination, it's a tension, a practice, a conflict that must be continually renewed. Revolt matters not because it will save the world, but because it prevents the world from closing completely around us. Against capitalism's demand that everything be productive, against society's demand that everything be normal, revolt affirms something irreducible, the capacity to say no, and in doing so to open space for forms of life that power can never fully capture. We cannot rely on social revolution, but we can refuse again and again to live as if authority were legitimate, capitalism inevitable, or obedience virtuous. And in that refusal, imperfect, unfinished, and unresolved, revolt finds its meaning.